Death by noise.
Through dark veil of space, time.
Yes, I like it.
This is Warp Chatter!
Sweet mother of the abyss!
There's a great deal of work to do.
Okay, alright, welcome back to the Warp Chatter podcast. This is the podcast dedicated to talking about the Horus Heresy Legion's digital card game, Horus Heresy Lore, Warhammer 40,000, everything else that encompasses. I am your host, Scuff D. This is a podcast by players for players, and today's episode we've got one of the players from the Reddit community, which actually I think you might be our first player from the Reddit community.
Yeah, so essentially I'm on Reddit as Tryhard3. I've been on there, pretty much since the beginning of the pandemic is when this all started for me, this game. I got involved from it, just kind of looking at it and going, oh, like 40k, and I've tried to get into things like Hearthstone, and they weren't really for me, but I'd give this a shot. And I have the same kind of trajectory as everyone else, where the early part of the game is frustrating, and then you sort of get into a groove of how the game expects you to play it and what works for your style and what doesn't, and learning what can like rocket you up towards 2500 a little bit faster. And soon I started, just writing feedback into like the daily shop threads. That's a huge thing on the Reddit that I don't think a lot of people really know about or visit very often, even in the Reddit community. There's many other threads that get much more, I think, upvotes and things like that.
Those shop threads are important, though.
I agree.
They're great.
Yeah.
Well, they're more important to me, because I use them to predict what factions and shop next.
So
I use them for my data, and I can now predict shops with it.
There's a whole crazy science to the shops.
You would think it would be crazy, but it rotates on a roughly 14-day period now. It's not bad.
Right, yeah, because there's 28 factions, right? So it should definitely work out. Yeah. The other issue with it is that sometimes they just randomly stick in like a random warlord in there, and you're like, we need, Chaos Spawn in here again for some reason.
Yeah, and then it fucks with the order of things. And that annoys. Like, Sons of Horus have skipped several lines and went back in within a 4-day time period. That has fucked all my predictions. I have to redo them now. Besides that, it's good. I like that guy's posts. His name's escaping me right now. It's Van something. I keep wanting to call him Van Boning. But that's the Emperor's Children man.
That is... Let's see. I forget his name too, because he almost never posts in the actual thread. Let me take a look here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure his entire dedication is just posting the thread itself.
Von Binzer.
Binzer, there it is.
That's his name. And then essentially what will happen every day is this guy, I have to do a shout out for Argus3. He posts a rundown of at least some length every day, without fail. I'm in there maybe 4 out of 7 days most weeks, maybe a little bit less, especially if I don't see anything where I really have an opinion. I kind of learned how to do it from Argus. I just kind of went, we should just give a kind of analysis of like every card showing up in the shop as much as possible. And I've kind of ordered it into like a great, good, meh scale. Great meaning should probably go in every deck or be bought straight away. Good meaning, hey, this is nice if you can find a use for it in your deck. It's not necessarily going to be like something you should just shove in straight away ×2 of every single time, but it's useful. And then meh goes into like, this card is either just completely awful, or you're really only going to find a niche use for it in the game. And that, I think, works out well for me. So that's one of the things we do on Reddit. And the other thing I've kind of been slowly becoming known for is both the Beginner's Guide Reddit thread, which was helpfully and kind of, it just really did me the honor of pinning it to the top of the Reddit site. That it kind of really helps new people with some of the things going on in the game that aren't incredibly obvious at first, and then gives a really brief rundown of the factions and what they're about mechanically, and then some early tips for like, here's how you should probably spend gold. Here's where you want to spend gems and not spend gems, and what are the things that will save you some heartache if you learn about them now rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
And I try and avoid really like posting like deep level like opinions of factions, because we've all got some level of like rant we want to do.
That's what we're doing now, boys.
Yeah. I don't want to scare people away. It's part of it, but the other part of it is just let people form their own opinions, because to a certain extent, I'm not an expert player. I'm not a top 50 person. I go online and I watch videos and I play myself and I do things, but I don't really love the top 50 meta of the game. So I see a lot of people playing in different ways at that meta and elsewhere, and I kind of collate that data into here's what's generally working for me and what's working for people that I'm watching. But I try not to. I try to be Reddit friendly. I don't try to like go, this is bad and this is good. I think almost every faction has some way to at least get you to 2,500, and you can play them successfully high level in the game. So I don't really begrudge anyone who has really strong opinions, but I don't really want to scare people away from doing this or that thing and learning the game their way, because I'm frequently surprised by decks I see and results people have with certain cards that I thought were crap, and I've been completely wrong before. Aided Thiel came up in shop I think a month ago, and I went, not very good, hasn't been good for 2 years, and I wasn't really paying attention to the fact that Ultramarines meta had changed very, very recently, and then I was just straight up shamed off my gold.
You want to know that I was offended too, because Thiel was great 6 months ago. Or really, Knights kind of put a nail in his coffin. But
yeah, he has an interesting history. For a while, he was like incredible, and then they like debuffed his warlord ability so that it cost more energy, and then Ultramarines were kind of like on the cusp of being like meta friendly, but not really super popular. And then with this new Ultramarines rework that I hope we get to discuss a lot today.
That'll be a lot of.
He's great. Yeah,
it's hard to look at him without looking at their new.
Yeah, often I'm on the money, but sometimes I'm just like, whoops, missed out on that whole trend. Yeah. So I try and approach it from a perspective of not being the sole source of wisdom in all of Horus Heresy Legions.
Yeah.
So like I do a lot of PvE strategy guide threads, and I title them like a guide. I don't say like the guide. It's just because of I just don't want to put it out there that there's one way to do it. Because I read responses to this latest one, and I see people do it completely different from how I did it, and go, okay. And there's a certain RNG element to those games, the PvE events in particular, that can be both frustrating and lead to people on one hand saying, this was really easy, and on the other hand going, this is just, I'm busting my head against this event.
We'll bring up UM real quick. The word bearer one was the easiest shit in the world for me. Actually, Reckoning Gilliman was a joke. Now, I will note this. Among the community, I'm a huge word bearer fan, so playing this was normal to me. I was already completely in on their playstyle. So I can understand why someone who doesn't touch word bearers would have a bad time. But for me, I made Reckoning Gilliman my bitch.
Yeah. The word bearer one in particular, for me, I found that I really had to run Lorgar until I had some kind of tactics or troop cost bonus. And then I was really doing it well. I don't love that it feels like a lot of the time that you really want one of those, and it's very RNG whether or not you get a cost penalty or bonus. It really makes it takes it from, it can take it from challenging to like deadly easy just with just one of those deck upgrade cards. But yeah, so I did Blading of Terra in one go. I didn't lose once. And other people are like, I'm just getting obliterated by Kumblai bikes nonstop. And I'm just like, well, it didn't happen to me. But I'm taking notes. So, yeah.
Yeah, for me, Ralderon was the hard one. I think Warhawk, I had to face him twice, but the first time I came close, and the second time it wasn't really an issue. But Ralderon, because those landing effects, it's like, okay, well, I stun it, but then it's still going to get the landing effect, and I don't want that. So that was a bit of a matchup. So I was glad actually in that last wave where you weren't always guaranteed to face him because it made it a little bit easier, but he was still pretty hard.
Yeah, Ralderon is an incredible warlord to begin with, and drop pods are deadly. You have to pop them almost every time, or you're just going to get wrecked.
Yeah, and it's conditioned me permanently to do the same against Sons of Horus, which gives no advantage whatsoever. My mind is just permanently like that.
Yeah, Ralderon, he's so incredibly good. Like, the CPU doesn't use his purple card because, well, who knows why. But
they will if they have a dead turn. But if they don't, they'll never use it.
Wow, I've never seen him use it before. Like, I've never seen that or several other characters use their purple cards.
Oh, every time it's a Callus bot, he always poisons and then instantly pops his purple card for me.
Good to know. Yeah, because I just don't see it. I see Callus Typhon use his. But the entire event, I thought the first two legs with Kaifa Morarg and who's next? Callus Typhon, of course, the infamous. Those were both really straightforward, typical PvE event experience where you really, in my opinion, want to prioritize bashing the enemy warlord with your own warlord. You just go face constantly and burn them down before they can get a combo off. And then with Mortarion, it's like you're at a much more even hit point level. There's more hit points on each side, so you're going to have a long game to begin with. And then Mortarion is very oriented towards just grinding out.
I believe the word you're looking for is boring.
Yeah, it's like the idea with Mortarion is like, you know, you're winning finally when the enemy is like now running out of cards, and it's just like, oh my god, this is a little bit much, especially if you're trying to hope you don't get Kumblai bike attack. Just the worst right now. So,
and I will say to folks at home, Death Guard are so fucking boring. They actually made me quit the game when I first started. I went in from playing Death Guard on the tabletop, and then I got Garo and a very limited Death Guard collection, and I went, nope. I laughed.
Yeah, I don't love them at all. I think Morarg is really fun. I think he's going to change the way Death Guard are looked at. I think the new cards are fantastic, and I wish they were here a year ago, because Death Guard is very, very slow in a very, very fast game. And no one really wants to spend an hour and a half doing their dailies with Mortarion and hoping they win. That's if they win every one. So,
yeah, I've had more fun playing with Typhon than I have with Mortarion. And I mean, which is weird to say that, but like when they did the Death Guard patch at the start of this year, which I think was like one of our first 2 or 3 episodes, I think, of the podcast, we were covering that. And
yeah, we had Karmatos on it.
Yeah, they did that Death Guard patch, and I don't play him a bunch, but when I'm on a kick, I was like, yeah, I'll play him. Like, and the amount of healing and troop preservance that he can do before the new cards was pretty nice, and the new cards add an extra layer to that. With you get some really good ones in there. You get the 2-drop, you got the 6-drop, you got the mission on top of that. And you can have some powerful late games. The downside is it's still a slog game. It's not any faster than Mortarion. And in some matchups, it's still kind of, I mean, like, it's hard against, somebody who's running Agents of the Sigilate, because they can either jam all your stuff with a board-wide jam, or by the time you get out one troop, they've got, Chosen of the Sigilate on the table. Or
I do want to note, don't play attrition versus Agents of the Sigilate. They will get their fucking cards.
They'll get their stuff, and then it'll really start to snowball. Or if you're playing against Luther, that's hard too, because you can put down some big bodies. He'll just take them. So you got to hit him hard and fast, and there's not much time in that for Typhon to just sit back and heal things. So yeah, they're a different style, and I'm looking forward to playing Mortarg a little bit more. I've had some fun with him a little bit. I still need a couple of the cards. I don't have the new Epic. I would like to get that so I could try that out with a Plague Marine. That would be awesome.
Even a Plague Elite, getting an 8/8 poisonous, not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, that implies it sticks, but...
So, yeah.
Plague Elite, of course, is not well loved in PvP just because you can
Melgator.
Melgator. All those
any troop in
battles.
Melgator range kind of kills it.
Yeah.
Look at the new Blood Angel vehicle. If you ever see that played against you, please screenshot that and DM it to me, because I refuse to believe they exist.
It's out there. It'll show up in an event. Events don't count when it comes to some card strengths.
I do want to note that event doesn't count. You need to send me a DM in a match, a real one, and it can't be you, because then I know you're trying to do it.
I want to say Mortarg, I think, has a lot of upside because, outside of those, very bad matchups where you're going to lose an attrition game against Sigilates, I think a 1/4 drop is amazing. Yeah. Just because that's going to take 2 actions or 2 cards in most cases to get rid of.
Yep.
Keyword there, the front line.
Yes.
1/4 drop. Because just the 1/4 drop, I laugh. Frontline, fuck you. Because even the 3 attackers can't get rid of them in one hit.
Yeah, and they might just ignore them because a lot of the 3 attackers have Unstoppable. But at that point, you're like, oh, well, then I can, upgrade this into something else and use it to, poison troops coming out, all sorts of stuff.
Exactly. Or Command Bunker, increase the attack, Horgarg, or anything to make those 1/4s that you ignore quickly can turn into some strong stuff. So
so he'll win a lot of attrition matchups outside of groups like Sigilates, which probably need to be retuned to be a little bit less insane at times. But that's the story of life.
I feel like Death Guard came out on top the most with the new missions. It's followed by not new missions, but new mission update, like the new cards plus mission. Not like you'll ever see the Death Guard mission. If you do, again, DM me that, because there was some shenanigans going on your end if you let them do that.
Right. Yeah, I think Temeter Squad is an important addition. I think the guy who does 2 damage and maybe gets poison and a buff if he kills on it, he's a great addition. Just stuff that lets you
damage for the Death Guard. They didn't have much to begin with, so getting some is nice.
Yeah, even if it's just a 2, it's a 2 little ping. The best thing that they had for the while was either you play Vengeance from your Warlord or you have the speeder bikes.
Don't forget the Blight Grenade. It exists.
It does, but I tend to forget it.
It's a little bit disappointing at times.
Yeah, exactly. It's this is going to clear the board. Nope, it's not.
Yeah, it's going to do 2 damage to a guy with 40 health, probably.
At this point, I've just targeted the Warlord's face so I can cut out the middleman. I also gave them flankers, though.
Yes.
The bike may not... It's pretty good, especially if no troops, due to its poison effect. So even if the flank fails to kill it, it will eventually die.
Yeah, love the flanker. I think everyone needs a flanker in their deck in almost all cases. So that's great too. All of the new stuff really came in handy in the PvE event. You can see its value immediately. It just makes you go faster.
I think the one thing, because in retrospect, so far, I mean, granted, we still have got 2 more waves of Galaxy and Flames to come out.
One of them you may or may not have reveals for coming out by the time you've seen this already.
That's right. Well, hopefully by the time you see this on, listen to this episode on Thursday, like you've seen all the spoilers and you're hyped because
they're dropping tomorrow.
It's coming out tomorrow
because we record these live, and you know that, guys.
This is in warp space time. That's right. But yes, I mean
simultaneously in the past and future. Those reveals were awesome.
Yes, we've seen them all. We've seen all iterations of them. Even when Sanguinius had an actual ability, and his reckoning form. Yeah,
that will happen. Maybe, hopefully, please, goddamn, please.
Well, like the Death Guard, they're susceptible to the poison is a really good feature for a lot of countermeasures, like enemies who rely on flanking to clear your stuff. If it's poisonous, then they're going to still lose the flanker. The only upside, or the only opponent I think that actually doesn't struggle too much against that is the salamanders, because their sacrifice triggers with the way poison, or the way sacrifice was reworked. However,
most bodies you still want to stick.
You still want them to stick, and on top of that, because of both the rise of salamanders about 2 months ago, as well as now the rise of Mortarg and the Death Guard, and probably I would almost say maybe some of the Imperial Fist stuff too. Not all of it, because some of it's like you don't want that to rally again, but some of it. Melgator is seeing even more prominence, so that kind of shuts down people wanting to play some of those Salamanders decks. So it kind of still benefits the Death Guard, but I'm very curious to see when the Salamanders get their wave, their Galaxy and Flame wave, like what that is going to add to the mix.
I hope it's nice. I hope it mixes up their playstyle a bit.
Yeah.
I just want when the Iron Hand ones come around to fucking add the Gula. Where are the Gula or Gola?
I think if you're anticipating a Salamander attack, or really several other factions at this point that have just brutally sticky troops with horrible passive effects, I think Watchers in the Dark are your best friends right now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Watchers are fun. I find them a very niche card, but they're fun.
When they stick, or when my opponent plays them and I don't have an immediate answer for it, it's like, oh man, this is going to be tricky. Unless you're playing like without troops, then it doesn't matter. But now it's harder, especially when you've got another Warlord pumping out frontline stuff. You can play that game, but it's a little bit harder to play.
We here at Warp Chatter legally don't recommend it.
But we're talking the Ultramarines today. Before we get to the full scope of the Ultramarines faction spotlight breakdown, picks of cards that work, cards that don't work. We do want to kind of take a quick look. There was just a small follow-up patch
very small
on Thursday. I honestly think, granted, I could be wrong, because typically like I said, last episode, 5 months, we have gotten a significant patch the first week of every month, and then that patch also basically does a significant work of a faction, and then there's a few add-ins at the end that kind of rework some previous patches in there. However, with the timing of the Galaxy and Flames release and the White Scars getting the streak mechanic, we actually saw a significant patch to the White Scars the week prior, so that was still in November. Now, as of the recording of this episode, it's December 4th, so it's entirely possible that we could still see a significant patch in December that addresses a faction or multiple cards, more so than this one patch. But if we don't, then I would probably just kind of consider this that tail end portion that could have been tagged on with the White Scars patch last week and wasn't. Mm-hmm. Although
it definitely feels like it.
It does feel like it, aside from like one specific change, which feels like they couldn't have known to change that until, well, they should have known, but they couldn't have known to change it until after the event had started. So the Sons of Horus Sarpati squad gets its bonus changed to just +1/+0 as opposed to +1/+1 from when a Chaos card is played.
This is the one I'm the most confused on, because there's no reason for it. Unless something crazy is going to come out here, there's really no reason for it.
That's my thought. Honestly, is that there's got to be something, or either a deck type or a deck build, that this could become problematic, especially with second wave.
I think they were concerned about the bonus from, what do they call it, Embracing Temptation. Theoretically, you could, very theoretically, mind you, you could make a gigantic Sarpati squad off of that.
That's a very niche combo, though, and it's a lot easier to do with pre-existing cards. So there must be like an event reward coming out here soon that, if played in combination, would create a Sarpy squad so big, no matter how many flankers you had, you couldn't deal with it.
Right, or Sarpati squad itself has been problematic in events. I've not heard that. More importantly, typically it's not recommended that they make balanced decisions based off of event performance.
Yeah, never go off event, because especially in a draft environment. Imagine they nerfed Chariot of the Gods simply because in event you could have like 8 of them.
Right.
That would be bad.
That would not be good. Emperor's Children, Hold at All Costs, was changed to With Perfection, as opposed to refilling all of your energy. It now refills only 5 energy. I see a lot of people feeling like this got nerfed into the ground. Personally,
I still see it used because it's a free 3 cards, essentially.
I agree. And personally, I mean, I don't think it's going to work as well as it did for Lucius and Saul. And I'm okay with that, because Lucius and Saul were working, Fulgrim and Saul. Fulgrim and Saul. I was going to
say, Lucius was said there, and that confused me.
Fulgrim and Saul were working fine and will continue to work fine with the full bevy of the Emperor's Children card. It still works really well with Lucius. And when I say that, like, I know people are like, well, it's not the full energy and you want to use that to use your ability, or like, if you've got your deck set up right and you have tactical brilliances or you have drilling sights, then basically you're getting 5 energy for 2, as well as drawing 3 cards. So you're still gaining 3 energy in a turn, in addition to any other cards that you can follow up with and play that. At the very least, if you combo, you can still gain 5 energy and throw down a favorite of Khorne. So it's not it's not a dead card. It's still useful for, at least from what I've seen, and I've experienced, it hasn't changed how I play Lucius at all. It still works very well. I think they needed to change it because it was ridiculous for what it was doing, and I don't have a problem with that myself. But I know, like I said, I know some people are like, "Oh, it's dead." I'm like, well, you should have been.
The itself showed that Hold at All Costs couldn't stay the same.
Right, absolutely, yeah. The play rate for Fulgrim was just through the roof.
15%?
Yeah.
Holy.
And to kind of go with another card, not necessarily play rate, but I mean a card that has been offensive with the with favorite of Khorne, or Khorne's favored. Defenders of Caliban has got their Pride of Caliban change, which only allows now the Warlord to act 1 more time, as opposed to twice if it had Bloodthirst.
Yeah, I was going to say, many people read this wrong and thought Pride of Caliban only procced once now. No. Your Marire combo that you desperately try to pull off, because let's be real here, that's Exodia and you're gambling for it.
That still works. Yes, exactly. That still works. It's just if you throw down Khorne's favor and you're trying to do the cipher, whether you have the counterattack or not, and I'll just attack 2 times for every 1 infantry I play down, and I'll wear you out and win you. That's not going to be an option now. You actually have to play troop after troop after troop after troop. You can still play it. It's just not going to be as effective as it was.
This feels like at least our 3rd patch to deal with favorite of Khorne issues.
Yep.
Easily.
Which is to say, not real thrilled with how that's been going over here. That's, I think, one of the weak patches of the game right now.
On top of that, like that card, and we've said it before, like when they showed that card as the reward for the event, I was like, this is a problem card. Why we don't want this in the game? This will be bad.
None of the community wanted it, but we really like getting event.
We got it in like 3 hours. Like that event the scoring on that event was so out of. I was not going to play the event. I was like, I'll play one game, and by the time my game was finished, we were like a third of the way through. I was like, there's no way. What is going on here? Like, it's rigged. But no,
I want you to know, look at that and then Lord of Flies.
Listen, I didn't play for Lord of Flies. Like, I played for all the prizes up until Lord of Flies when we got the Warlord before that. Yeah, we got Crucial Choice. I was like, my work here is done. And that was old Crucial Choice. Okay, that was old Crucial Choice. I was pleased with myself.
Extremely worthless Crucial Choice.
Scuff, being so long in the Eye of Terror itself, can see into the future, so he knew what we were gonna get.
I knew. I was like, listen, this will have its uses. Trust me.
Eventually, yeah.
I looked into
in a very
540,000.
Zinch way.
Yes, 540,000 futures, and in one of them, this works out.
And the other one is the version we got nowadays.
That's right. Listen, somebody did something wrong. I told Tony, I was like, this is it, and he didn't take my advice.
Someone moved the cup slightly,
yes,
and then the butterfly effect into this bullshit we have now.
Such is the nature of the warp. And then the Ultramarines had their Captain Alcaeus' ability, as opposed to being like an activated ability, which was like kind of a dead turn, kind of useful.
You also never. It was nice, but you rarely saw.
I used it like maybe 1% of the time. I used them to attack more than anything else. Now this is now this is a triggered courage ability, so you actually gain some value out of that.
Oh yeah, it's so good. When you see courage, especially nowadays, as we're working more in a control style meta, like aggro is still a thing, but it's really died down lately. You'll see this courage actually trigger a lot more, assuming you have a blank board.
I still don't think he's like my favorite legendary by any means. I feel like that level of addition to your hand. I mean, beforehand, it was like, if I add these to my hand, I'm probably going to end up milling myself if I'm not careful. And I'm going to mill myself out of something I really want in my hand, as opposed to like this little like 2E or 3E jobber card. And now it's like, okay, I can find a space for this. I don't love that it's courage, but it's fine. It's fine now.
Yeah, the timing of it could still be tricky with Gilliman if you have created, practicals in your hand from the get-go, because maybe by the time you play him on curve, your hand might be a little bulky anyways. But
it'll be perfect for the best Ultramarine Warlord coming soon.
Are we going to get Mercer? Is that what you're thinking?
I'm thinking we're getting Mercer. If not, I'm going to find Mr. Everguild and challenge him to a duel, as is tradition.
I would love to see Mercer as our Ultramarines Warlord. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think the Dreadnought is cool too, but Mercer is pretty totes.
He has great flavor in lore.
Yeah.
He has a cool ass ability. He's unique. It's thematic. It's everything we need.
He's got a golden face. Come on.
For the people at home who can't remember him, he was the guy with the was it Battle Honor Gain Survivor?
I believe
his ability.
No, I believe his Battle Honor was Gain Survivor. I think his ability was do damage.
I'm going to pull them up. So
yeah, look it up. I might have that flip flopped.
You might be right.
But he also had the card in hand that like when he triggered his Survivor, then you could create a McCragg's Honor in your hand. So you wanted some Survivor because you were going to trigger it, and then end game you could throw down, back-to-back McCragg's Honors if you got to that point. So it's kind of cool.
All right, let me find him. Oh, all right. I think I got find him here soon.
A reckoning into itself.
It kind of was. It was kind of like, okay, once all you have to do is spend, is get that Survivor on there once.
Okay, Scuff, we were both wrong. His Battle Honor was Gain Survivor 2, but his ability was give +1 to friendly troops.
Oh.
If you don't have any, heal 2.
Even better.
Even better. Obviously, that's great. And then he had a 20 energy card. Obviously, you're not going to play it as such, but it costs 0 after triggering Survivor, and it creates a Maraig's Honor in your hand.
Yeah.
I don't think that card then returns the hand, though. So you only ever get one.
It was a one and done, but that's really all you need.
But yeah, you would get a McCragg's Honor for free. So it costs energy.
Yeah, so you'd have to take him out when you triggered his Survivor, or at least be out of lethal range when you triggered his Survivor. Not that he couldn't gain it again, but yeah, it was a cool event, Warlord.
Yeah, and
I wonder
oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. I wonder if they won't rework that, because as it is, it sounds just like straight up better than like Marius Gage.
His buff ability is, yeah. I mean, he doesn't have.
It doesn't get harder to be McCrag.
Yeah.
He was a unique option. I actually really liked him. And I feel like I'm not in like the minority by saying that, because a lot of people want him too. There's an odd amount who want that Dreadnought.
Yeah,
I'm the biggest fan of that Dreadnought, to be honest.
I don't mind it. I mean, I anytime we can get more Dreadnought Warlords in the game, I'm all for it.
Yes, especially because looks at camera. Dorn, I will mount a melt-a-bomb on the Cassian Vaughn. You can't stop me.
Dorn is flipping tables as we speak. He's like, I will return to the game, and I will prove you wrong. I hope Dorn comes back for the Salamander's wave, like just for a day. He can do it.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, we had a slight change to the event Warlord Jang Sai Khan receiving, having his energy refill option removed. Nothing else was changed with regards to the White Scars or how that was running. I still like Jang Sai Khan a lot. It's unfortunate that the Warlord who works with Streak had that specific ability that worked with Streak removed, so he's really just a Warlord who makes 1-2 troops. Streak by itself, I don't know if you really need a Warlord to work with, and maybe that's something to think about when they're making mechanics. Some mechanics require Warlords to support them, and some don't, and I think time has shown, as long as Kublai Bikes remains the same as it is, I don't think you need a whole lot, and even then after that, I really don't think you need a whole lot to actually help support Streak.
Oh yeah.
Discord is like, but Reddit right now is just on fire about Kublai Bikes.
Oh, everyone's on fire about Kublai Bikes.
Yeah, it's not
loved.
I'm gonna say it's universally panned. I mean, I personally, I think the intention was a good intention, but
the road to hell's paved.
It's not done very well, and I think I'm still of the mind that like if the streak was create a copy of Kublai Bikes and add it to your deck, and maybe even just draw a card, that might be too much, but like that would be something like better, and still not make it just a one and done. But in its current state, yeah, it is a big problem. It's an easy way to trigger that mission, and on top of that, unless you are doing something that can withstand, or whether it's survivor or poison or something like that, like those flank troops, late game, you're like, oh, you put down a 9 health troop? That's all right. I'll just play the same card 3 times, and that one card you played is dead. On top of that, I might be drawing cards with reduced cost of 2 and setting up my next turn, which could kill you. So
the only good part about that is if they've activated their mission first, they have a chance to deck themselves out.
That's it. That's the only positive I can see in that scenario. And I mean, it can happen, but you really have to have some balls. Yeah.
That's really very. Those are both very bad outcomes in terms of balance and design.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to rely on a deck out as your only way to win the game.
Looking at Mortarion mains?
Looking at Pirate Raid, but that too.
Pirate Raid is interesting. That's a very interesting card. I both won and lost because of Pirate Raid being played by other people.
I've actually seen Pirate Raid for that reason, specifically after the Kublai was launched. I was like, I'm going to play some Orphans of War and I'm going to run Pirate Raid, and I beat White Scars. I beat like 2 other of the new Warlords, a Tybalt Mar, and I don't think it was Draeger. I think it was the Death Guard guy, because we went toe to toe because it was Tarsa, and we got to the late game and it's like, I'll just draw you out. Like I don't have any other thing. Like my whole thing is I just will survive and I'll draw your cards, and you've already got low deck where I can draw your cards out. So by the time you trigger your mission, now every street card you play, you're killing yourself. Like, it's an option. It's a terrible. It's
you should feel bad, but it's an option.
You should, but it was like at the same time I felt it was like, you know what? This is a smart meta if you want to go that way. If you feel like these aggro draw decks are a problem, Orphans of War has Pirate Raid, and you could very easily deck them out before they could finish you. So
you can even double your money. And go in for those other mill cards. They're usually reserved for Alpha Legion and really get them going hard.
Mm-hmm.
There's some choices here.
It is. That was an Exodus was another one that I took out, that was super fun because it was like a pretty good Exodus. It wasn't just trap spam, and I drew him out too. I think I pinned that. I might have pinned that game. I gotta replay that. That was a fun one. That was a good game, but at the same time, it was like extra victory. It was like, you know what? I beat you at your own game.
Fire Raid is a fun card.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
So with this mini patch, I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot to talk over. We talked about each card individually. You guys have any other thoughts?
No, not really.
I think it's a very minor patch. It's disappointing that Kublai didn't get addressed. I think Captain Alcaeus is still kind of like a third-tier card in the overall Ultramarines meta, but is significantly better. And maybe one day we'll get a resolution to all those problems with that Caliban Warlord drawing his tactics and screwing everyone up.
I would say overall, I don't really have any problems with this except Sarpy. Sarpy made no sense, so they better have something fucking cool cooking in the pot. I'm gonna be sad.
Yeah, I just have to feel that there's got to be something there, like with second wave, and they're like, oh, this could be a problem down the road. Let's get ahead of the curve. Maybe I'm being just generous or something. Yeah,
maybe they're lowering his cost next update.
Yeah, you never know. All right. So, with the patch discussion out of the way, the main topic of today's episode, the remaining hour-ish that we've got to talk about, is about the faction spotlight for the Ultramarines. So, we talked about Captain Alcaeus a little bit, but the Ultramarines faction, obviously, I mean, I would probably argue it's one of, if not the biggest lore-heavy factions, definitely GW-supported and backed factions in the... I mean, when you talk about 40k and you say Space Marine, since 4th edition, that's what's been on the cover of the Codex.
Before I joined up,
yeah,
I saw all Space Marines were blue.
Yep, that's what the token... pictures of Space Marines. It's all the model boxes. It's Ultramarines. The Ultramarines themselves in Horus Heresy are a little bit different. They are blue and gold. And personally, I think there's a lot of people who have the opinion that the 30k Ultramarines are at least a little bit more interesting than the 40k Ultramarines.
I like how you can say that about every Legion.
You can. I mean, to be fair, that's true.
They became chapters, but...
Yeah, I mean, the Ultramarines in the 30k, I mean, obviously the size and scope is huge. They are one of the biggest, if not the biggest Legion.
They are the biggest Legion, followed by Dark Angel.
Yeah.
There's lore reason for that.
There is a lore reason, supposedly.
Well, not even supposedly, because Dorn figures it out in the books. I'm not going to spoil much, but yeah, they are the Legions that went bad. They just put them into the Imperial Fists, the Dark Angels, and the Ultramarines. They
have absorbed their co-workers, so to speak.
Yep. And it was Dorn's idea.
Wasn't there some lore involving... I know the Dark Angels don't have any gene mutations, or at least no perceptible ones to most people, and I think the Ultramarines are right around that status as well.
Yeah, the Ultramarine gene seed is pure 100%, hence why most successors are based off of them.
Yeah. I think if we divorce all the Games Workshop pushing of Ultramarines as like the default Marine, I think they're interesting from a lore perspective when you like look at what they represent in the overall setting. There's Guilliman is kind of the Octavian of the Roman Legion setting that the game kind of takes place in. And you can kind of see the parallels there.
That really depends on the Legion, though. I feel like every Legion has their culture. Well, not even feel. Every Legion has their cultural influence, and yeah, they really go hard on the Roman.
Yeah. So you have something to glom onto there from a lore perspective. Besides, we're the first and best Marines that are on the cover of your book, which I think drives people nuts to a certain extent. And we could also talk about things that were said in certain books with Marnius Calgar being the spiritual liege to a bunch of other legions, which immediately turned off a bunch of people who have rightfully don't think that should be the case. And I don't think it's really even official anymore. It's just, they've gotten some hate for being pushed down everyone's throats, but they can be a little bit deeper and more interesting.
I find them a lot better in 30K.
I agree. Yeah, if you're a wrestling fan, they're the Roman Reigns of Warhammer 40K.
Oh God, you're right.
They've been pushed down your throat, and you're just gonna have to suck it up. For me, the Ultramarines, I didn't have a huge problem with them when I started playing, because I was playing third. The Crimson Fist were I spent some time.
Not only were they the cover boys of the Crimson Fist, they were also one of the coolest fucking leaders.
They were pretty cool. I liked their armor. I liked the fact that their fist was red as opposed to like a shoulder pad thing. It was like all blue, and then the fist was the difference. And that was kind of like, okay, I can go with that. As I read more of the lore of the setting and the Codex and what, my friend had the first print of the Codex Astartes, where it was the actual, which is now just part of the actual Codex Space Marine, which was like, here's how you would paint the markings for the first company and the second company and the third company, so that way you could actually do a whole army and distinguish, from the lines on their shoulder pad to the markings on their knee van braces, if you want to go so far, the composites of what a company would consist of. It was a really cool book. And then I was like, oh, this is, found out that that's the model that was laid out by Gilliman. I was like, okay, well, that was my first kind of introduction to any sort of Ultramarines lore. The follow-up to that was, as I read more into the lore, because I was an avid Imperial Fist fan, Crimson Fist, Successor Chapter, I was starting a Black Templar army. Then I start reading about the Horus Heresy, and obviously Dorn sits out most of that until they have the Siege of Terra, but then there's bits in there about post-Heresy, where the Codex was implemented, and then, reading how Dorn resisted that, and Gilliman kind of just shows up and is like, hey, we should follow my book now. And it was weird, because that fan part of me kind of was like, I don't like it either. If Dorn doesn't like it, I don't like it, and it works for the story. I think the 30K Roman Legion, they build roads. They've established the Imperium Secundus is what it is for short term, but the McCrag Segmentum is, a testament to the success of the Ultramarines. They're very good in that. Gilliman is the diplomat. I mean, that's kind of his role, what he was created and intended for. It's really interesting because they're statesmen, but they're also Space Marines, and their best leaders are capable of not only tactical decisions, but also in terms of motivating and uniting forces and people. And I think, the No Fear book, which is not necessarily the first one, but it is the first major book that introduces
good book.
The Ultramarines into the Horus Heresy, launching off with the Calth betrayal, and that was written by Dan Abnett, and that was just written so well. It was kind of the first chance that they had to really, let's give personality to the Ultramarines. And even though the personality is practical, theoretical, that in itself...
Oh man, I love their personality.
Yeah, it was done really well.
It's so fun to read, because their books read it almost gives me a stroke because of how they talk. But God, is it perfect for the characters.
They're really the best argument that, there could be a good guy in the Imperium rather than the setting being entirely grimdark.
I will argue they're not that good of guys.
I mean, they've done
idiotic assholes.
They've done some idiotic things. The raising of Monarchia, that one good turn deserves another.
I don't even label that as it, because that was technically 100% allowed. I just mean, you can't really call Space Marines in any capacity the good guys. Even the Crimson Fists, which are one of the nicest legions or chapters, they still weren't great people.
Well, that's a question that is don't ask that when you start with 40K. That was my first week. I was like, I'm going to start a army.
There are no good guys.
Who are the good guys? And my friends just laughed. They're like, dude, Sit down. This is not that
Literally
game.
none. Literally
Right.
none. Because there's a dozen more worse.
They try, I think, as hard as they can to give you an alternative to, like, nonstop grimdark in terms of, like, here's what the Imperium could look like, you know, if Horus had lived up to expectations and done something besides set out for nothing but glory for himself. What if you had someone who was literally a tactical genius?
I do want to know, Gilliman technically went traitor. He's not all good. The minute everything started to fall apart, he locked down himself and just went, no, we're our own Imperium now. And he only stopped because his brothers went, what the fuck are you doing, Gilliman? Like, there is no good guys in 40K. There are none.
No.
And even then, Gilliman is an idiot.
I think each book gives certain elements of the fandom something to attach themselves to that is unique to that faction and that piece of lore that lets you be a fan of that group with respect to what's going on in the overall setting.
I mean, from that regards, I'm more of a fan of the bad guys than anything anyways, so.
I am too.
Word bearers for life.
But yeah, it's something where, and they're not as good as the Romans were. They've basically proven that they can control a sector and maybe even a galaxy if they're given a shot, rather than just burn it down.
That's debatable if we're comparing them to the Romans.
They're basically meant to be a Roman legion almost entirely.
All legions take their inspiration. For example, the Thousand Sons are a mixture of the Persians, the Egyptians, and a bunch of other things. The Ultramarines are a mixture of several cultures, but to say they can hold things like the Romans and not burn things down, it's coincidental, because that's the same thing they both do to anything they don't like.
Well, and that's in general, that's the Imperium.
Yeah,
right?
that's the Imperium. That's why they're not.
Yeah,
the good guys.
the Imperial truth is, embrace it or suffer the consequences, and that you will be raised and burned down, and we'll rebuild you in our own image. You have those two choices. Most don't even have to get to that point where they have the ultimatum, but if the ultimatum is raised, that's what the Astartes were created for. They were, even though they are diplomats, they were created for war, and that's that constant message, that constant theme that is in every heresy book, novel. Characters that recognize it tend to be a little bit more hardcore. Sigismund recognizes it, Abaddon recognizes it. I mean, these are guys who know that this is what we're built for, and that'll never change. Like, you can build the Imperium, but there will always be something that we have to fight, because that's what we were made for. Yeah. If there wasn't, we wouldn't exist. We're not nice.
Which is why I really like Ahriman as a character, because he's so woefully ignorant of that.
Yeah.
He dreams of retiring and having a vineyard. That's not happening, friend. Yeah. You are a soldier at first and last.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. Romans are famous for burning and purging a few different groups too.
Every group that wasn't Roman.
Right. So it's sort of like, here's your Western culture mixed in with some really interesting things where, Guilliman is the embodiment of imperial reason and logic in many cases.
I would argue that too much to a T. Like, he's too much of reason.
Yeah, later in the setting, we discover that he's so eminently reasonable that, he's kind of angelic and can, cure
not exactly
just
that.
by being present.
I'm saying he's so reasonable, he's stupid because he can't even imagine the idea of people using stealth tactics.
Now we're getting into like deep cut things where it's like, was this a bad piece of lore or not? Cases.
Well, that's the thing. Every Primarch has their main focus, and he's the practical and theoretical man. So if he breaks out of that mold, he's nothing. That's his unique character trait.
I mean, the Ultramarines have a secret police force. They're not really above anything that you'd consider a modern nation state to be capable of these days.
What? Not even what I'm referencing. I'm referencing their combat doctrine, how it's cut and dry, and anything from it they kind of just freeze up. Which is why Seal, the first warlord in their set, is very important, because he's the first person to go, what the fuck?
Well,
Change that.
yeah, he asked that theoretical. Is like, what if we ever had to fight each other? Like, what if an Astartes had to fight an Astartes? How would you beat an Astartes? And that's why he gets the red helmet, the mark of censure, for thinking that. And that actually ends up being his saving grace and kind of helping, turn the tide, but kind of also marking him in a different role. And I thought that was a nice little piece in the lore, because the red helmet down the road, is a symbol, is a veteran's helmet. That's a veteran sergeant's helmet. That's actually pretty cool how they kind of incorporated that, so you can actually see that taking place 10,000 years earlier, how that originated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're a mix of rigid and highly adaptable in ways that other groups aren't, which is sort of an irony.
Don't want to discredit the other legions. Every legion is highly adaptable to an extent. The Ultramarines, without Seal, still couldn't do shit about basic stealth. But then you give the Iron Hands something like, figure out how to do this with just this fucking toaster, and they'll build you an entire goddamn death machine.
Yeah, I think the meme is to view the Codex Astartes as like a rigid book of formulations and things you must do, and I think what they in the lore, it's more a work.
We know about it. That's exactly what it is.
It's more a work of tactical genius than anything else.
From the lore, it's actually just thousands of books detailing every possible combat maneuver ever. Where going outside of it, they're just don't, because everything we ever need to do is in it. Like, that's actual lore. Like, the idea of dropping assault pods as a defense mechanism, already in it under a rule book. This maneuver we're doing, already under this page, this page, this page. It really is just a giant book of combat. Yeah,
but we have lots of giant books of combat in real life that really aren't considered rigid so much as...
Oh, no, but that's the thing. That book is extremely rigid.
If it were rigid, then it wouldn't have every permutation of possible combat.
No, that's the intent of it. The man went through the entire thing and wrote down all of them that the Ultramarines care about. See, that's the key part. That's why other legions don't follow it, or follow it to an extent, because it doesn't have anything for particular vehicle combat, which, if you know the White Scars, can't have that with them doing that. They like their cars too much.
And it was also something that Gilliman was working on prior to the Heresy. So, I mean, he finished it, during or after the Heresy had concluded, I'm not quite sure, but he had started before that. So there was a lot of stuff that kind of came about during the Heresy that the Ultramarines had never encountered, situations that, had just simply been unfathomable creatures that didn't exist, the concepts of, the combat with warp entities. And there's a lot of stuff that I don't know if they made their way in there or not. You see occasionally the Codex Astartes does not approve this maneuver, this action. Does not approve, or it just simply does not address, is kind of the question sometimes. I think the game itself, when they came up with the idea of the theoretical practical, which was interesting because these are just tactics. They're just a different kind of tactics, like secret orders and traps. But dividing the two, and then having a variety of units or warlords that can create one side or the other, I thought was pretty cool.
It was thematically appropriate.
Yeah, and I think as time has gone on, we talked about the last patch that really kind of reworked the Ultramarines as a whole. They've gained some more use as a result of that. We've had some good cards that have improved or gotten better. The Warlords themselves haven't changed, at all. I don't think they need to, because their Warlord abilities are pretty versatile. I think I should take that back. Gilliman's ability can now actually create, a practical if he can't damage a troop rewarded unit. So there is that option.
So crazy they did that, because after Q&A where they went, no, it's thematically appropriate. Also, it had too much words on the card. They fixed it.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a minor change, but everything else in there has just gelled. Whether it is adding some additional courage concepts, making beefier troops. I think a huge change. We talked about how powerful Mantle of Ultramar getting that out, and then just every turn after, having troops that get fatter and fatter. The Ultramarines have kind of upped the playstyle, because then they've got large body troops that are actually supported by some pretty strong and or flexible tactics. When we talk about like the Death Guard are really just big troops and minimal tactics, or tactics that are designed to help.
And usually low damage troops.
Right, like some low damage just to buff until you get to the big boys. These guys out the gate, they can start small and they can get big, or they can start big and get bigger. And then on top of that, you can throw a lot of healing, arguably more the healing than the Death Guard themselves. Depending on if you're creating practicals that are healing 40 your Warlord every other turn.
Still less than the Alpha Legion, though. Thank God.
Yeah.
So
I mean, overall, in their current state, I know they weren't as of like last week, they weren't at the top of the meta report, but they still perform really well, and I like how they play.
It's funny you say that. I was talking to Alex earlier. Alex 18787. I forget his exact name.
Alex 87.
Yeah, and he said, yeah, you probably didn't see him up there because they didn't touch Seal this month.
Yeah, he's Theo player number 1. Alex has been playing Theo since he released, and I don't think he ever really stopped. If there was a tournament he could play Theo, then he would play Theo. So
that's awesome.
Which reminds me of our friendly German Constantine. Which, if you don't see Custodes on any meta reports from here on out, it's because he stopped playing them for a reason.
I told him. I said, hey. He asked straight up after we had the Q&A. He's like, "Is it true that if I stop playing Custodes, that they might change? They might give him a buff?" And I was like, "I mean, that's exactly."
With a similar question.
I was like, "That's exactly what Everguild said. You should stop playing Custodes. See what happens."
Yeah, he messaged me with a similar question. I'm like, "Man, you go for it.
Yep.
I believe in you, buddy."
He's like, "I'll have to take a hit for the team." I was like, "Do it for the boys in gold."
Yeah, I love that there's a faction for everybody in Warhammer generally, and in the card game especially. I think when I look at what they did to the faction, it's a very simple faction to run now. If you have a good troop curve, you can barely do wrong. Mm-hmm. You just want to spread out your troops across the entire curve from 10E to 2E, and make sure you've got something at every stage of the game, and really you'll do fine. It's noticeable that there's a lot more like damage pings you can generate from dropping troops. They changed some old troops that just kind of did whatever effects, like made more of themselves, put those to hand. Those were fixed so that you had some more immediate action, and you can make a really damage-focused deck. You can make a deck that's built around just sustaining your board presence to a very annoying degree. And they have a lot of flexibility. I think most of the time the flexibility will trend towards dealing damage rather than healing as much in most cases, just because a long game is not usually what you want to do in Horus Heresy Legions. You just want to kill people, especially if they're, a sigillate or something else that's going to be awful past 10E. But really, they're fantastic now.
Yeah, I think especially with the troops, whether they have a rally effect dealing damage, or they've got a decent, whether it's a battle honor or a courage effect that is gaining, creating a card in hand, like you just get a faction that does really well in terms of they aren't only just responsive now, because I think that was the big problem that they had initially was, okay, we're a troop we're a faction that has to respond and play from behind curve. Now they can be responsive, but with enough edge to not feel like they are always on the back foot. They can actually take a step forward when they play their turn, and I like that.
Yeah, if you word search, if you have a good Ultramarine collection and you're in the game and you want to make a new deck, just word search the word damage, and really you'll do well from that point onward. It'll really play itself to a certain extent, and that's refreshing from like okay, how can I figure out how to like replicate my bikes back to hand over and over again, and like other stuff that just isn't really going to work. Just a much more active faction now.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and I think with especially with those troops that were replicating, those were somewhat useful for Gilliman's Reckoning State, but they weren't super useful for the other three Warlords. And they're kind of at a 3-cost and 4-cost, point. That's kind of when you want to have troops doing something. So it was kind of nice to actually have, them actually have some utility in answering stealth or answering board presence, which is something that the faction was a little lacking.
You need to have some kind of stealth hate. You need to put some damage down and take control of the board. You can't. You're not going to beat like Sisters at being a reactive faction. You need to have your own space. And I think they really hit the flexibility vibe right now because you always have some kind of answer to what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think that overall, I think the faction has answered really well with the evolution where they're at right now. I know they're not going to work for every game. I think some games are going to outpace them or play faster or control when they want to play big, heavy troops and you've stun locked them or you're using, shuffling stuff back in deck or, irresistible charisma, whatever it's going to be. There's always going to be those plays. I don't think that's a bad thing. They should be.
Yeah.
But overall, I would rate them as a very solid, especially compared to what they used to be, a very solid faction.
Yeah, no, they're quite solid now. Especially when they first came out. Well, not first came out, but the rework first came out.
Mm-hmm.
The meta was pretty much just Gilliman and Thiels for a little bit.
Gilliman and Thiels.
I would say no, they're in a good place right now. Also, we mentioned Dorn earlier. He says hi.
Yeah,
just text me.
Very good, very good. So, with all that said, what would you guys rank as in terms of Warlords? Because we'll go with Warlords first, then we'll talk about the rest of the card pool. Who would you rank as your top Warlord pick and your least favorite?
My favorite, I don't know necessarily best, but he does have his selling points, is Marius Gage. There's a lot going on with this guy that's kind of amazing in itself. He can draw cards for 1 energy. I don't think anybody else can do that. It's almost better than giving +1/+1. If you're a starting player, you can play almost a completely out of faction deck with him. You can make a Marius Gage burn deck if that's what you're determined to do. Or you can make a Marius Gage infantry deck through a neutral faction. Or you can just play him as a pure Astartes deck where he's always buffing or putting something else to hand. And he'll work great in any of those scenarios.
Yeah, there's some stuff to be done with them. They're flexible.
It's hard for me between Gage and Remus Ventanus. I like that. Remus is kind of general. He doesn't do a whole lot, right? He's he does 3 different things, not exceptional, but also not really terribly either. He just does them. I don't feel like that's a bad thing.
No, it's definitely not bad.
I don't know. I don't know if that's actually something where it's like, hey, you know what? It's actually better than you think, and that's better than Gage's ability, because the Gage drawing for 1 is great, as well as playing, troop buffs once he gets what he needs out on the board, especially in a faction that really aims for that more than anything else. I don't know. That's a hard call for me.
Yeah, I think Remus, a lot of the times with these like bonus survivor things or bonus frontline drops, you kind of want to save those for the end of the game and put yourself out of reach of a 1-turn kill. But you can play the whole game as Remus just on the offensive and, get his battle honor as much as possible as well. Mm-hmm. He really exemplifies. He's the best example of like how to actually play flexible in Ultramarines. Sometimes I think the flexibility is overrated and you're just wanting to hit damage, but very infrequently you're going to want to do something else, and he can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is nice. It's always good to have options. Because the minute you're forced into a playstyle and you got no way to counter it, it's like when the game first came out and there was no anti-stealth, except it was not good. It was not. You were forced to have very specific things. I like the Ultramarines for that, and their Warlords that exemplify the. Here's a couple options you got.
Who would you rate as your top Warlord pick, Axel?
The very top. Ooh, to be honest, I really dig Steel. I love my 30 HPs that can actually perform. Because there ain't much of them, but oh god, do I love them. For those unaware who are just tuning in and didn't hear, I played Argyle Tall all the way up into a decent bit of Low Terra. So I got like 1,000 games as him, I want to say, at this point. I will try my hardest to make 30 HPs, because I just dig them. So I got to give it to Steel.
Yeah, I think that's... If you're still a good Warlord at 30 HP, you're a very good Warlord at that point.
I like the old design philosophy when the game was first, or like in its earlier stages, where the 30 HP's intentions were to have better abilities than the rest of them to really make up for that running the Razor's Edge on dying. But that's changed a lot lately, and it kind of makes me sad.
There's some, outright. There's good and bad characters to play as Warlord at every rarity and HP level, but there are some really disappointing 30 HP Warlords like Targetai. Just off the top of my head, is just not designed well at all right now.
I always hear this hate from Targetai from so many people, but I'm in the opposite crowd. I see Targetai go he's a very specific deck you got to build, but Burn Targetai is actually quite popular and scary. Then again, the only person I really see play him is Orthanol, and then those who know Orthanol know, yes, of course Orthanol makes him work, but, he'll try his damnedest.
I think Orthanol's also got a Baleful Assembly Targetai, which actually seems to work better than Burn.
He's got multiple versions, because that guy likes Targetai. I give him credit, or acknowledgement at least. I couldn't do it. I'm not a big fan of Targetai, to be honest.
I could probably just name drop Lucius here and get us all going on a tangent too. But yeah.
Oh well. Rip Lucius. Why is he a 30 HP? I forgot he was a 30 HP because he's also an epic at the same time.
If he was a 35 HP, he would be too powerful.
Obviously.
That 5 extra health is technically 2 turns, and that 2 turns is potentially, another 2 turns for him to hit you for 7 to 9 damage in the face. So
you are right. He needs something. He needs a special card.
I wouldn't be opposed to a special card.
Well,
even if it was just a special card that it was like an extra copy of Concentrated Fire, that would be perfect.
Yeah. Because right now, Karn and Lucius are the two Chaos champions that lack a special card, but Lucius is the only one that also lacks an alt art. Because every other Chaos champion has an alt art. Mr. Everguild said himself that every Warlord, they aim to get an alt art. That's a very long time goal, but...
It can happen. If we get to that point one day, that would be pretty cool. So with the Ultramarines card pool, after looking at the Warlords, when it comes to practical theoretical, what would you guys say you prefer more of?
I'll actually have to think about this, because they both have their upsides and downsides.
Yeah, I'm going to do a quick review here. I know, I really don't want to get No Fear randomly in my hand too many times.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But there's, so much more damage now that it's this is great. Just completely obliterate people with these options.
I like a lot of the practical. The Retribution strike is pretty nice, and so is Opening Salvo. But then again, a lot of the theoreticals are also good too.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm really torn. I want to say theoretical because I like to play Seal, and theoretical give him some nice things like stun, some little bit of draw. But I got to give it to practicals because a lot of it's just the damage aspect.
I think in terms of selection, I really don't want that many theoreticals most of the time. Chain of Command is very niche. Interlocking Tactics is probably a little bit too expensive, and it's not really how I'd want to break stealth. And, outside of No Fear, I think all of the practicals are pretty much great. Opening Salvo is a great way to break stealth, or at least kill stealth, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much more damage. Adaptable Tactics I've been screwed over by so many times. So it's great. Practicals. I vote practicals.
I'm going to vote practicals too. I think that they are the better beast. Personally, I like the healing. I like the damage. I like how they execute. I like when they get created more than I like when theoreticals get created. I think Logos is a great theoretical, but
I feel like Theo only makes up for it because he's really spending 2 energy for 1 energy cheaper theoretical.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the only reason I've ever looked at them and was not discussed. Thank God Gilliman just makes them practicals. That is.
Yeah. Yep.
Because if he made theoreticals, he would be a significantly worse warlord.
I agree. So
There's something to be said for Logos Lectora being kind of amazing, but there's a lot of all of it's very niche. Maybe this will work. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
So then, theoretical, practical argument aside, I think we're judging all by the practical.
Yeah.
Would you say that you prefer? Well, I guess what 3 cards would you rate if we just were taking top three of the faction outside of Warlords? What would they be?
Man, I've got a top 10, but that's hard to say after you're down to top 3.
Yeah, you narrow down to top 3. It gets tight.
You want to go swing in first, or
I can swing first, definitely.
All right, you hit me with your top 3.
I would say Apothecary Theon is Don't Leave Home Without It.
Yep.
I think Miatas Cruiser is a really good stealth pick for something you should have in every deck. It's just a huge. The jam and the damage it's going to either kill your troublesome troop or end the game for you. And outside of that, that's a really hard thing to say, but it's hard not to kind of like Captain Corvo, because he's probably going to be, outside of the obvious, like Macrage's Honor, I think Captain is the best legendary troop anyway.
Theon, yeah.
Theon is fantastic.
I want to say Theon's better. Wait, no. Well, I keep forgetting Theon. I'm mixing up with Coleman. He's not even a legendary Theon. God, he feels like he is.
Yeah, he's great, and they changed him to be even better. So now he can do like a wider heal.
Yeah. Trust me. We talked about that. He was crazy when they first buffed him.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you want to drive somebody nuts, put out Theon, and then essentially put out Relentless Pursuit on him, and then just have endless Theon just messing with people until they just auto rage.
And Relentless Pursuit being a 1 energy now is so sweet.
Oh yeah. It's a new fact today. Their website still didn't update the Ultramarine cards because I quickly went on there to just check out their stats so I could remember it.
Yeah, everything on it's wrong.
Yeah, you gotta boot up the game.
Yeah,
on desktop.
Yeah, they take forever to actually update that damn website. I know I complained to Mr. Everguild about that, but if you're listening, Mr. Everguild, please get better. I love you though. Kisses.
I think I agree with you. I think before the recent patches that they've got, the recent downgrade patches, Logos, Lectora, and Marcellus would have been at the top of the list for a long time. They were actually, I think, at the top 3. But I do think in my top 3, I also agree that Miatas Cruiser and Theon are 2 of those top 3 for me. Because 5 for 5 is great, and then on top of that, the timing of the jam and then deal 5 is great. And Theon is like, if you don't have 2 of this card, you can still play the faction, but you're going to miss out. And it's really fun to get him out there. It's just like playing Death Guard without endurance. Like, why would you? Like, you're not getting the full experience.
You're gimping yourself.
Yeah.
Like not using Dark Martyr. Into a camera.
Trying to not include a legendary, because I think Corvo, Macrage's Honor, and even Mantle of Ultramar, which is all 3 of those, especially played in that order, forget about it. Try not to include a legendary. It's hard because I feel like one of those has got to take that spot. I mean, 7 for 7, but it can also heal 7. Flexibility, and usually the best play is not dealing 3 or healing 4. It's usually making it +2/+2, but sometimes you want to deal 3. I don't know, man. That's a tough call. And the Mantle of Ultramar change is so strong that it's really one reason, I think, why their playstyle has improved significantly in terms of rewarding the stickiness.
Remember how many people asked for that exact Ultramar?
We did, and we got it, and now it's like, finally.
Yeah.
For months.
And then the amount of people who then asked for that to be reverted
immediately right away.
Realize,
it's too strong. Well, this is what you wanted. Yeah, I don't know.
Really, what the community asked for.
If I'm going to go with the top closer, I'll just go with McCragg's Honor. I don't think any of those are bad cards at all, but I do like ending games as opposed to prolonging them. So those are my top 3.
I mean,
if I had to pick a non-legendary, honestly, I like Censor Squad. That's my honorable mention.
They're cool. I like their art too, because if you actually look at it, they are the most uncombat ready squad possible. Walking into a battle engagement, like their weapons are completely like aimed upwards,
pointed the other way.
Bears pointing at them. Yeah, it's bad. If I gotta go top 3, I want to do non-legendary, but you know what? I'm gonna go out of left field. I know McCragg's Honor should be at the top, but I'm simply giving him a mention because I originally hated this card. What's their 8 energy troop called? The one with the route,
or the Terminators?
No, it's a little legendary.
Oh yeah,
I think he's 8 energy.
Stellac Atheon. Yeah, he's
Stellac.
8.
So Stellac, I hated him for a bit because of a misclick. I accidentally wasted all my gems when I was a starting out player.
Ooh.
Picking him up. So I've hated him since. But now that he's actually good, I got to give him a bit more credit. I really enjoy him as a hard removal.
I'll bet you every longtime player, myself included, has accidentally bought something before.
Oh, yeah. 100%. There's no confirmation for spending your gems.
Right. And I bought a Raven Guard epic well before I was collecting Raven Guard, and I was like, well, that's my 400. And it turned out to be a really good card. When I think it was the one who starts in stealth and deals 5 damage if you hit somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah, he's pretty good. But like when you're trying to save up for something else, it's really just soul destroying.
Yeah. Not exactly great to pull off, but yeah, we've all been there. I gotta give him that, and then, my Addis and Theon are obvious. It's just obvious.
All right.
Not much variety from us, folks, but what are we working with here? We're working with the Ultramarines.
That's right.
So, yeah, like my regular tier guys would be like Helixus, Ingenious Command. When you told me we were talking Ultramarines, I tiered them all out. So I'm staring at a list of these things. But yeah, they've got a lot of really good late game troops that just kind of end games. I think they've got one of the strongest late game selections of any faction, more or less. But it's those mid game ones that really break it open for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else to say on the Ultramarines, at least in the card pool, as far as that goes?
I think we covered most of it.
There's cards I don't like in their set. Still, not very many.
What are those in particular? Which ones still rub you the wrong way?
Chain of Command, I think, is weak. I don't want to put Frontline on my Warlord, put it that way. If someone's poisoned a troop or badly wounded it, I still feel like I'm playing from behind. Interlocking Tactics, like I said, not an economical way to break stealth. It just should probably use, what's that 3E Chaos card called?
Informant Network.
Informant Network. Mm-hmm. Just, the 1 damage is going to matter more. No Fear, a little bit too costly. Lords of Ultramar, I think, is just
meme.
It's a meme. It's something. It's kind of like the opposite of Raising of Monarchia, where you're just dropping a turn for a so-so bonus. Menace Recon, I really dislike. And then I think the last one is they never fixed Tech Marine Arius to be a little bit less situational. I wish he would just damage or buff anyone, and then he'd be quite interesting.
Yeah. I feel like you got to be careful, though, because pushing too much. Balance is a delicate thing, which is why I'm not exactly happy with their giant will slap the entire faction. But I feel like they've been playing it safe lately.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll do a quick fix. They'll wait a bit. They'll only ever do one Legion at a time. Get like a big change. Actually, playing it pretty smart for once. Kind of impressed.
Yeah, they take their sweet time on updates. There's a long series of changes to knights that I think got under people's skins that took so long for them to be made vulnerable to stun again, things like that. But they really...
I'll give them credit when it comes to that. They were releasing expansions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not necessarily bad that they take so long.
Yeah.
It's just like, if you're very knee-jerk, it can lead to worse outcomes than if you wait and let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Which is why I'm happy that they're... now that all the legions are there, they're doing it. Maybe only one legion a month, but hey, they've gotten buffs so far, and they've been nice ones.
I think so.
I do want to give a shout out for the people who have been waiting for any change or rework to Night Lords for going on 2 years now, though.
They're happening, though. We know for a fact they will come. The question is when.
That is the big question.
Trevor Gill did give us good information when it comes to that. He also, though, told us that Custodians weren't being reworked, which broke our hearts.
That is heartbreaking. They have a lot of like straight up trap troops.
Don't worry. They said that, but they don't know. They don't know what who was putting them on that board, or he is angry. Constantine will stop playing them if it means the rest of us benefit.
That's dedication.
It's dedication, baby.
Yeah, you got to be dedicated if you name yourself after a character.
That's true. Well, I mean, I don't know if I've got too much more to go on with the Ultramarines myself. We're kind of getting to that hour and a half mark. Normally we kind of break and ask, when you're not playing Legions, what is it that you do?
My life is kind of up in the air right now because I got word this morning that I would be able to move to Las Vegas.
I got to pause for a minute. Scuff, as a man from Las Vegas, and he was given the stories, I gotta ask, why Vegas? Vegas is the place someone lives.
Yeah, why are you...
Vegas is the place people live.
Is it?
It's partially, it's a few things. It's been a long-term plan. So, Las Vegas, I live in Seattle right now. And in Seattle, a 2-bedroom apartment, you're going to probably be paying very well north of $2,100 a month. We've got a good deal on one, and it's still expensive. In Vegas, that amount of money will get you a 3-bedroom house, no problem.
That's true.
And we're looking at eventually, buying a house there.
Okay.
So, no basements.
Where are you buying? North Las Vegas? Summerlin?
Yeah, Summerlin.
Okay.
Not bad. As long as you don't end up in Skin City, you should be fine.
That's right. Summerlin is not bad. It's you will have to put up with landscape or home owner associations, and those can be a thing of a whole different beast. But Vegas is. I was born and raised there, and I always, as I kind of grew into nerdy things, I always saw it as Mos Eisley. And I was Luke Skywalker. And at one point, I lived in Calico Basin, which was like 20 minutes outside of Las Vegas. So it was even like sometimes I would stand up on like a rocky desert bluff, and I would look out over Las Vegas in the distance, and there would be like 2 suns setting, and the music would upswell, and then
this is the most unsurprising thing I've heard.
Then my Aunt Drew would call me home to drink some blue milk. But no, I mean realistically, it's there's a lot of jobs. There's a lot of work. It's a big city. Biggest thing I miss about it, aside from obviously the friends I have back there, there's some decent game stores, and the food. Your
crippling gambling addiction.
You will never have no options to eat or watch a movie, go bowling. Entertainment that's what the city was built on. So yeah, if you're planning on moving there, it should be fun. Good luck. And Summerlin is don't get suckered into North Las Vegas. Don't do that.
Also, don't ever go to Skin City.
Don't go to Skin City.
I mean, the name was already selling me on going there, but I keep being told not to.
If someone's like, "Hey, let's go hang out down by the Stratosphere," just be like, "Stratosphere." fear, no.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot to dislike about the strip culture in general.
Yeah.
It's also rather interesting if you're not from there to a certain extent. But you wouldn't want to live in that area, put it that way.
No.
I like gambling as much as the next man, but I see a bad deal when I look at one, and that's Vegas.
It is funny because I play D&D with my friends, and they are all from Vegas or have lived in Vegas at some point in their lives. And a couple of us aren't in Vegas anymore, so we play online. And the other day, we were talking about this really shitty, like, hole-in-the-wall dive bar punk club that was off of, like, industrial. That wasn't even on the strip. It was like out like halfway between the strip and like the rest of Vegas, and there's like this weird like construction barren desert spot where they haven't built anything and they really haven't established anything, but there's a bunch of like warehouses, and it's like where like a supervillain would hold their lair.
I want you to know, Scuff, you've already sold me on going there.
This
you can stop if you want.
This bar was like this. It was a punk rock bar. It was basically, it seemed like it was like somebody's crack house in the 70s that they like basically tore down all the doors.
Does it sound like the spot they would go to in the intro of like one of those B-movie 80s like RoboCop or Terminator clones?
Yes, except take away all of the ambient light, any sort of like good music, any sort of seating space, and then fill it with like the smell of like urine and nicotine. And we were like,
so it's like Burning Man.
It was, well, yeah, pretty much in the middle of the desert too, so it's like really hot. I mean, it's the kind of place where they have a restroom, but it doesn't have a door on it. So like, no joke, that at one point the lid to the toilet was literally a cardboard box. That was the lid to the toilet. That place is still there, and it still gets people, and they still have it. Like, how is that possible? Like, it was like, you gotta be kidding me. They're like, no, we were just there last Friday. I was like, don't go there. What are you doing? You are 40 years old. You will die.
How low has your life gotten to go there willingly?
Yeah, it's
I'd go there as a survival challenge.
Like, I get it if you're a tourist or you're like, hey, that sounds like a fun thing to do. Or I saw The Hangover. This should be fun. It's not. Just don't.
I saw The Hangover. Let's go put through personal hell.
Right. Outside of that, the games I play, getting back to this, the core nerd demographic.
Yes.
I'm honestly like, I play a lot of Insurgency Sandstorm.
Ooh, I've seen that game a bunch. I've been thinking about it.
Is that a tabletop or is that a video game?
No, it's a first person or third person. I know it's a shooter.
It's a first person shooter, kind of one of the many successors to Counter-Strike, where it's realistic, but not like it's not Arma 3 realistic. It's kind of a hybrid arcade / realistic shooter.
Okay.
It's not a walking sim like Arma, which is nice for me. Because I play Arma, and some days I don't want to walk for 8 hours.
Yeah, it's very structured. You can play it PvE or PvP. It's got maybe best in class sound design. Like, it feels like you're being shot at. I'm told anyway by people who have been shot at.
No.
And
a large demographic of 40K fans, which I say that as a joke. A lot of the Discord were like vets.
That is true.
Not really are vets.
Yeah, it's interesting. Tabletop games really attract veterans, and I suspect it has something to do with downtime back at the base, needing something to do. So you meet that crowd in Insurgency too, of course. So there's some you meet some interesting folks who say like, yeah, I've been shot at before, and that's what it sounds like. So it's pretty interesting that way, and it's mostly for me, it's just fun to go through and kind of do what I do in Legions and play a different gear setup and see if I can make it work.
Yeah, which is always fun. Mixing stuff up is always good, folks. Even I had to mix stuff up. Me, word bearer man. I was getting bored.
Sometimes, and
yeah, I did. I rode ROM to 2500 ranking, and that was a piece of cake.
My opinion on Rom is he's not a word bearer warlord. He is a chaos warlord with extra steps.
Yes, but those extra steps are occasionally good pickups in a very good Legion.
You were saying something, though, Scuff, before I had word bearers brought upon me.
No.
You know my trigger.
Yeah, hey, you gotta talk word bearers. I think that's...
It's like whenever someone says Star Wars to you.
That's sometimes you just get triggered and you gotta go off on a tangent, and it's okay. It's okay. But yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, we've got now we got over 114 Warlords in the game, so there's no reason not to mix things up, and you should never feel stale. If you're stale, just make a new deck, or at the very least, get excited for these new cards.
I do want to say
deck slots for it.
And I don't know how many people will hear this, but I do want to say that in the Reddit lately, we've had maybe one post a day of someone who's just, completely burnt out with the game, and just is ranting and is, up and down, swearing to give up the game, and et cetera, et cetera. And to me, I think there's some truth to what they're saying, but there's also an aspect of if you feel like you're playing a game too much, you're probably playing it too much. Mm-hmm. You got to know when to set it down, when to take a walk basically and try something else.
Well, that's what happened to our boy Dorn. He's a long-time player of this game, and he's just being such a long-time player. He sees it as more of a commitment, so he's taking a break.
Yeah, you got to take a sanity check every once in a while, especially in the age of COVID. Mm-hmm. You'll wake up one day and realize that something's not quite right, and it might be that you're just in a rut.
Yeah.
So if you don't walk outside, at least play a different game. Put it that way.
Yeah, we had that episode where we talked about just like playing for fun or making the game fun. With the I think the BB was guested on that episode. Yep. I think that's something where sometimes people forget because they get so invested into it, whether they've got to win or they've got to get to ladder, to Terra, to take first or whatever they're looking for. They kind of forget why they came to the game in the first place. You play the game to get away or to have fun and to take a step back. Everybody comes to the game for one reason or the other, whether they're a 40K fan or they're looking for a game or they're bored or they had downtime. Last year, we had a lot of new players or returning players because people had more time to play the game. But nobody comes to the game like, I want to find the game that I can get mad at and yell at and get frustrated at. Like, nobody comes to a game looking for that.
Unless you're Mortem.
Well, I think Mortem is adamant at this point that he's going to not have as much fun as possible.
We gotta add him. We gotta always add that tag whenever we mention that, because there is users and we know them.
But I mean, if you take the time to just take the step back and it's not fun for me anymore, or I'm not having fun, I need to do something different. Take a break. Yeah, sometimes just take the weekend off, or sit out an event, or for me. When I get in that mode, I'm going to play a different Warlord. I'm going to play a different faction. I'm going to test something out, or at the very least, if I'm not going to play, I'll just talk. And I don't even have to talk about the game because we've made a lot of connections with the community over the 3 years. So sometimes it's just hopping on the Discord and having a chat or being goofy and remembering that these are the things that were fun and why we kept playing. That may not be why, for me, I was 40K and I like card games. That's why I got started. And also, there's something I needed to do at the end of the night. I needed to have something to keep myself busy. So my mind wasn't, focusing on other things. And that's what got me started. And what kept me going was talking with people and having a good time and feeling about that. There's a lot of ways to get fun out of the game. And I agree, it's hard to type that out on Reddit. And that's the one downside with Reddit sometimes is, when you respond to a reply or to a thread, sometimes you feel like, I don't know if they're going to see this. Is this thread been buried at this point? Is this even relevant anymore? So it feels sometimes like you're late to respond to something. But there are those people, and I think we've had them on Discord too, where it's just right before this wave of cards came out, people were kind of feeling that. It's like, I'm not feeling anything. I'm going to take a break. And it's like, well, do what you got to do. That's, the game ain't going anywhere. So come back when you want and come back feeling refreshed and healthy and happier. Because if you're not happy, then you're not, then you shouldn't be playing the game.
Yeah. And that's not from a perspective of like, oh, we're going to gatekeep it for you. It's just, everyone's got their limit.
Yep.
It's tough, and you should never let a game dictate terms to you in terms of how much you should play it or anything like that.
I know a user right now who's kind of hitting that stage where it's the burnouts right before the burnouts kicked in, just the immense rage at the game. Fredericks, you might have seen him on the ladder, Scuff.
I have.
He's one of MC's. He's one of the MC's boys. I think he's French. He's he's hit the rage limit, and I feel bad for him because it's just you gotta sit down.
Yeah,
you can't make it like your entire life around a card game because it's just gonna hurt you.
Well, and especially for I know I don't want to, I'm not slamming anybody who puts in the grind for the top 50 because month after month there's guys who do that every month, and there's some guys who just do it every now and then. It's commitment to it.
Oh yeah.
But this is Horus Heresy Legions. This is a digital card game which we all love and have fun, but it's got a player base, the size of a pinky compared to actual games that exist out there that you would want to have that level of investment to. Like if you're playing Pro Magic's Tour and you're playing for that level, I could see that. If you're playing Legions, it feels like tiddlywinks compared to chess.
I don't want to give Legion too much down credit. I mean, not enough credit though, because a little community on Discord, but there's a lot of mobile players.
Absolutely, I mean it's a big player base, but it's not anywhere near. And it's not like the notoriety. It's not like Games Workshop is like every month they're like, hey, these are the top Legion players in our White Dwarf. You should check out this game. Like no. They should though. They should put that in.
There. That would be a genius idea. That
monthly
would be so
White Dwarf, just even like in the editorial, like top 50 players screenshot from each season. That'd be sweet. I'm gonna ping Mr. EG and recommend that idea.
Mr. Everguild, we got to give him the idea.
Like Mr. House.
Yes.
He's just a mysterious figure sitting behind a computer screen somewhere.
It's our Jarvis. It's the Everguild Jarvis.
The community manager was on a few episodes ago, and instead of calling him his real name like he preferred, I called him Mr. Everguild, and now that's what the community is calling him. Because my goal going in was to make sure this man was called Mr. Everguild, and I won. I succeeded. That was my one goal.
We need to come up with like an avatar for him. Like he looks kind of like Mr. Moneybags from Monopoly, but we'll make him a little bit more like a hipster.
No, I was thinking just take Malkador and then edit the EG's like Space Marine helmet they use for everything directly on top of it.
On as far as the head, can he get like a gold chain with like an EG, like a?
Ooh, that'd be good too. We may have to commission Dorn to make him.
I think that's what we need to do. Let's do that. Let's make a Mr. EG avatar, and then we'll send it to him. I don't think he'll change his avatar, but that would be dope if he could.
We might be able to get him to though, because Mr. Everguild is a very cool guy.
I think he would mind repping some community bling.
My request to Mr. EG and for those listening is to try and get EG to interact with the Reddit community a little bit more, such as visibly at all. I don't think they're on Reddit at all.
They're not, but I believe the plan is to at least begin that, because Mr. Everguild was mentioning his grand plan to get more in community involvement. I hope they would do attempt a Q&A on there. That would probably turn out pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, and for the time being, I think before we wind down here, I'd like to shout out a couple of YouTubers.
That's usually the next stop.
That's our next step is plugs. Yeah, so if you've got anything,
we're in plugs now, boys. Woo!
I miss dearly Armitos's meme deck videos, and I've slowed.
Come home.
And I've really become a fan of Mr. Midnight's videos.
Mr. Interesting.
He makes me laugh almost every week because he either is just kind of hilariously into what's going on, and he'll literally just laugh at someone making a bad play, and you kind of feel it with him, or he'll get really intense and ticked off, and you really feel it. You're like in the room there with him, experiencing that. And he really, honestly, he's a great deck builder. He does stuff with Warlords and that are considered not meta, and does pretty damn well with them. And I see him pretty routinely get out of scrapes in top 50 gameplay that I wouldn't know how to get out of in his place. So it's been fun watching him. He's usually in the top 50 or on the cusp of it. I think he finished very high recently. But yeah, it's. I would also recommend anyone wanting to learn to play do it through YouTube. I think that's most how I figured out what was what with meta and what would work and what wouldn't.
Yeah. And
I think it's a follow-up to our Ultramarines discussion today. I'll work on a Reddit thread about Ultramarines because I need some content from both myself and from other people on faction breakdowns that we can put in the beginner's guide. So we've got about 3 of those right now. I'd love for there to be roughly 28. But
well, if you want a video that breaks down the exact card pool for every legion, it's almost like we know a man who's done those.
Yep,
that's true. Although to be fair, I think the Ultramarines card pool of card by card doesn't include the patches. But you know what? That's the nature of the card by cards. And even when I did the card by card reboots, it's like I'm gonna have to come back and do these one more time at some point down the road.
Yeah, because I know you were a little iffy on doing the bit as well.
Yep.
You had done it when they first came out, but Red Bear's got some good changes right before I think Blood Angels dropped. It was like right before that, maybe like a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
I still look back at those fond memories. Those were good updates.
Yeah, I'm thinking that like any faction breakdown I do on Reddit will include some good deck building videos from people doing real hard work on that. Because I know, Scuff, your deck breakdown videos are like an hour long. That's a lot of work.
It is.
And it's good advice.
That's got commitment. Especially if you look back to the good old days where recording set up with an iPad.
No, it wasn't an iPad. It was literally my phone. It was just my Android phone. Like everything was recorded and edited and uploaded from my phone. So yeah,
genuinely impressive. You did that. Hell,
there's always an early YouTuber period where you see them learning, and you slowly. Everyone had that period where they have an output that's like. It was what it was, but it's the dedication that pays off.
Right, exactly. Like I think probably my first year, like I could never figure. I just could not get the volume right. Like something would be too quiet or something would be too loud, and it was just the phone. It was the nature of the speakers and the phone recording. And eventually, like now that I'm on laptop, it's a lot easier. It's set. I don't have to worry about it so much. There's a lot more to it, but. It's funny because it's like that was a big struggle for me beyond anything else aside from figuring out was like people be like, man, I can't hear your stuff. I'm like, dang it.
Yeah, it's got to be frustrating, especially if you want to do really detailed videos that just go on and on.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, thanks to your work. Your work is part of what helped me. Many different YouTubers doing lots of different work, getting. As many as hundreds of views sometimes, and they're still outputting those videos. So it matters.
Well, it's good to hear. As long as it's helping some people out there, that's the whole point of doing it. So, How about you? Actually, got anything you would like to plug?
Yeah, I'm gonna do the good old usual midweek tournaments. They're constant. Get into them. You can get a legendary. That's nice. And then I'll plug our boy Dorn. Dorn Stash, that's Dorn Stash on Instagram, and Drew Lee Clark. He drew my beautiful little profile picture and is a good guy. So, hit him up if you ever want art, because he does do commissions, and they're beautiful. Right. He's also doing something lately where he's selling his recent sketches that he used for art and such. If you ever want those, you can hit him up.
All right, yeah. I'm going to plug deck slots. I know we don't have them yet, and I was told we were supposed to have them, a week and a half ago. So... Where are they?
Where are they,
Mr. EG? Come on.
I haven't heard about this deck slots wondrous thing yet.
The deck slots? You're not aware of how awesome they are? Of how necessary they are? We don't.
You're like me, and you only have 12 decks.
For me, I've got to have a deck slot for every warlord, so I can just have a deck ready for every warlord. And we have 117 warlords in the game. However, we actually only have got 110 deck slots. So that's not enough deck slots for the warlords, and it's been a point of contention throughout the entire course of since I started playing the game was every balance patch or every expansion, I wanted to make sure that we had enough, and we have been fairly good on that up until, when the Agents of Sigillet released, and then we didn't quite have enough deck slots, and now we're getting, 6 Warlords basically per wave. We're going to get 3 more. We're going to get 3 more Warlords, then we're going to get 3 more Warlords, and then we should get 9 more Warlords, I imagine, over the course of events. So that is a lot of deck slots that we're going to need. And when I last talked to Mr. EG, Mr. Everguild, at one point prior to this balance patch this week, was that they were going to give us 12 more deck slots to, kind of help fill up or address the need. But the Kumblai bike issue and the White Scars issue was kind of taking precedence, and that was okay. That's understandable. That's more affecting the game. But now that it's fixed, where are they?
We're using Kumblai bikes as the 100% excuse for
I'm going to, you know what, listen, if you can blame it on Kumblai, blame it on Kumblai.
Kumblai Khan.
That's right. Blame it on the Kumblai, baby.
Now that you say it, I definitely need them deck slots. I've got at least 78 decks that I believe in, that I like the decks that I built. Because, like everyone else, this is a game that I obsess over a little bit. And then I've got that last set of decks that I'm constantly deleting and recreating because I just don't have enough deck slots. So, need more deck slots. I'm thirsty for deck slots.
Slots for the slot god. Let's do it.
I keep hearing the slanderous lies like how we need deck slots.
That is the 5th god of chaos. It's not Mal. It's Sla. As in
I've got 3 Alfarius decks alone.
Ooh.
And one of them is even good.
One of them is actually Alfarius. That's the thing.
Yeah, I hunger.
It's Galactus hungering for deck slots. He comes to your world and he's like, I hunger. For our world, no deck slots. Sending out the heralds.
People out here really needing deck slots. Oh,
listen, when we get them, they're gonna be gone like that, because I've already got them filled in my head. I'm already fantasizing about how they're going to look.
In other news, Scuff has lost his mind.
It's okay. It's what gets me through the day. Well, that's it for me. Brian, I appreciate you joining us tonight.
This was
making
great.
the time. Yeah. And
I appreciate it. I got to tell all my friends I was going on a podcast this week, so now I just have that aura of self-importance. Yeah, the bucket list.
It's out there.
One step closer. Just look me up. I'm tryhard3 on Reddit. I'm Needs Food badly on other places, including Steam. And I'd love to play all sorts of different games with people, including this one.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's it for me.
That's it for me.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
It ends here.
This has been another episode of the Warp Chatter Podcast. Thank you for listening.
I can't help but appreciate your talents.
It was inspiring.
I need some mood.